Well, greetings and salutations, everyone. I hope everyone is doing well today. Today, I have some terrifying encounters that I am looking forward to sharing with you. Before we get into that, a couple links. As you know, I rely on Patreon, PayPal, and my merch to help the channel to continue to grow and go. Patreon and PayPal links are in the description below. My merch is displayed right under this video. Also, Dogman Frightening Encounters, Volume 1, 2, and 3, the audiobook versions. They were written and researched by Tom Lyons, narrated and produced by me, Jeffrey Nadolny. Those audiobooks are available on Audible, Amazon, and iTunes, the links to which are also in the description as well. Now, everyone, I have taken far too much of your time. Let's get on with today's upload. Shall we? Today's first encounter. I don't really know much about cryptids, but I figured here would be the best place to share about what I saw. I live in the very northern east coast of Canada, basically the furthest northeast you can live. I've heard people say that's where certain kinds of creatures live, but as I previously stated, I know absolutely nothing about. There's an area extremely deep into the woods about 40 minutes away from where I live. So deep into the forest that you don't really see anyone else. There's a few smaller stores out that way, but nothing really noteworthy. But if you walk deep into the woods, there's a path cars can't drive through, where a burnt-up abandoned slaughterhouse that apparently closed down back in the 90s. Religious/spiritual people I know have said not to go there because it is cursed. And I had First Nation friends fill me in on what he knows about the area, which he basically said he wouldn't go there either. Over the weekend, me and a few friends were bored and decided we'd check it out. Since we were in the area and extremely bored, nothing happened. Just some pictures. It was eerie, but whatever. Days after we went to this place have kind of been strange. I've had random, bad, unexplainable events occur out of nowhere. But I'm not really going to draw a connection between the two. Just thought it may be worth something. Here's where I think I had an encounter. We gathered the same group plus 2 extra and drove back out there, just to show them around, explore more, and get some better pictures. We had got there, we heard what we assumed was just the wind howling, but the longer it went on, we realized the pattern didn't match up with the wind, nor did it make sense for it to be howling like that. It sounded almost as if someone was whistling at us to get our attention, and a few people pointed it out, but we chalked it up to random sounds. The wind was probably just blowing through something weird. When we were in one of the secondary buildings, a friend pointed out it looked like something was running around outside the main building. And he was right. It looked like something very quickly moved across the front side of the building. And the sound was back, but much louder. We went outside and crawled through a section in the gate to get back to the main building. And as soon as we made it through, we heard a loud swinging sound, almost like rusty door was being slowly opened and closed. Myself and another friend were extremely put off by the sound and asked to go back to the car, but the others said they wanted to go into the main building. As we were walking up, we made it to the front of the building, and a friend jokingly made a remark about us splitting up and exploring the building. As he said that, we heard a series of loud banging, lines running across the metal floor of the building toward the door. We quickly made it out of there and ran back toward the trail. As we were running back toward the car, which isn't exactly a short walk, it's about 10 minutes on foot, we shine our lights back toward the building, and only about 3 of us looked back, but all 3 of us definitely saw what appeared to be something completely solid white running down the trail. We got in the car and drove back to town as quickly as possible. I don't think we'll be going back there ever. Today's second encounter. Hey man, I'm a subscriber, and I'm just going to tell you that you have helped me out more than you can imagine. I honestly had no idea these things existed. I believed in Bigfoot, but not the Dogman until last year at the beginning of winter. My buddy has this piece of land that butts up to a 10,000-acre park. It's called East Farm or East Fork. It's in Jamestown, Tennessee. Here locally, it's known as Glenobi. Me and my best friend Seth were hunting that place so many times, I couldn't even begin to tell you. It's one of those places that makes you feel like someone is watching you all the time. It's a very unsettling place. Back before the 1900s, there was a lot of witches and black magic type of junk. I mean, it's very well known as, well, not just a thing a couple people believe. I mean, everyone knows it. The road going down to this place is a steep decline down a mountain, and about 3/4 of the way down, it takes a left. You cross a really narrow bridge that leads to a gravel road that goes back into the woods at least 5 miles. Back in the early 70s, a guy hung himself on the bridge. Back before Dogman or werewolf happened, just that alone gave me an uneasy feeling. Eventually, I got over it. Me and my buddy got comfortable enough with the place that we'd walk around at nighttime with nothing but a headlamp on the dimmest setting because we didn't want to scare any of the animals. We are always both armed when we go. I usually take my AR-15 and my friend usually carries his AR-10 with a night vision scope. We really started carrying these guns after that winter evening. It was probably around 3:34 in the morning. I was in my buddy's truck with the window up, and my buddy was standing pretty much right there in the driver's side door. I mean, he had one leg out of the vehicle and one in the other. We had a tag along this day. His name was Dylan. He drove his own vehicle down because he wanted to bring his four-wheeler. We was sitting by a cabin, which is on my friend's property. It was built in the early 1900s. You can really tell how old it is when you walk in the doorway. It's only about 6 feet tall. I don't know how many times I've hit my dang head on that thing. Anyway, myself and Seth are sitting there watching Dylan try to start his four-wheeler. He probably cranked it 3 or 4 times, and it just wasn't having it. I guess where it was a cold winter evening, if I had to guess, it was probably 35 degrees. The time it finally started up right before it died, I shit you not, that if I had to guess, it was a half a mile away and sounded like it was right beside us. It sounded just like what a werewolf would sound like in a movie. Like, the longer it went on, the more it sounded like there was a man in there as well. It only howled once, and I'd say it lasted 8 to 10 seconds. Myself and Seth just looked at each other in disbelief and couldn't even really speak. Dylan didn't notice it because he was on his four-wheeler, and it finally started up. We never heard anything like it. I had to lay my hand on the Bible. I'll tell you, it sounded just like a werewolf in the movie. Typing this message is literally making my stomach turn. I don't tell many people this, 'cause most won't believe me anyway. But that's all right, 'cause I've offered to take everybody that hasn't believed me, and yet not one of them will come with me. I also heard this about 3 months later, first thing in the morning, like daylight. I do a lot of deer hunting and hog hunting. The Dogman / werewolf, whatever it was, when it hollowed at daylight, made me kind of think this is the way it's showing us this is its territory. This time it was quite a bit further away. Did say anywhere from a mile to a mile and a half. I mean, it was the same exact werewolf-like howl. Before all this happened, myself and Seth would go down there and throw out corn and hunt for 3 or 4 days out of the week. On the weekend, we'd normally hunt Saturday night for pigs. if we were going to hunt at all. We have drastically slowed down and hardly ever go to the place anymore. Actually, about 2 or 3 months ago, the cops found a dead body back there by the river. That should help you know just how desolate this area is. There is no service, not even any power lines, so if anything happened, a man would pretty much be screwed. Also in this area, just a couple of miles away, a man got a picture of a black panther on his game camera. Thanks, Jeff, for everything you've done. Hope all is well. Today's third encounter. I used to go to a camp with my dad at a seasonal campground in 2005 to 2007 in upstate New York in the middle of the Adirondack forest, and about a 20-minute drive from the closest town. It's now an agricultural farm and closed for an unknown reason. Anyway, families would bring their campers here and just leave them yearly. We were one of those families that did this. Luckily, there were other teens there around this time, and we all really hit it off. We ranged from 13 to 17 within those years. This encounter takes place in the summer of 2006. A few of my camp friends and I were bored at around 1 p.m. one day. We decided to hike into the woods that was behind all the campsites. We'll call my friends Jan, Bridget, Helen, and Aster. There were some well-traveled trails not far in, but we had already walked them many times. We decided to cut across the trails and go deeper into the woods. Eventually, we ended up on an uphill, 30-foot wide clearing that had what appeared to be a car to the right in the distance. Aster immediately sprints to the car and exclaims that indeed it's a very old, very rusted, abandoned car. The rest of us walked to our very enthusiastic friend. I remember feeling something was very off about that car and requested that we just get away from it. Aster laughs and jokingly says, yeah, it could be rigged with bombs. Bridget hit him in the arm and yells at him, shut up! Get away from the car. Who knows what could be inside? Odd, I thought to myself, maybe she feels the same way I do. We started to walk past the car, upward toward what looked like a larger clearing. Helen grabbed my right arm and walked beside me, seemingly terrified. Me being about 15 at the time, I welcomed her, clinging onto my arm, and really didn't notice her terror. As we reached the large clearing, the ground flattened. Directly in front of us, there's a pond. That is completely still. To the left of us, there's a yellow 2-story house that seems to be abandoned. This clearing is completely surrounded by the rest of woods. Upon seeing this, I remember the feeling of dread washing over me. Aster and Jan are running toward the house. Bridget, Helen, and I are calling out to them, telling them to come back and not to go near the house. Instead, they notice an open window and they both climb inside. As soon as Bridget sees them doing this, she yells out, fine, if you two want to screw around in the creepy house, be my guest. Her scream seemed to fall flat with no echo, almost like it was blocked and couldn't make it to the house. It was eerie. Bridget finally looked over at Helen and I, sounding defeated. She said, come on, let's go back to camp. This place is screwed up. We concur and start to head back toward the downward smalling clearing, when we hear what sounds like Jan scream. We look back and see Aster and Jan are already out of the house and almost to us. They are both whiter than freshly bleached sheets and are motioning for us to leave. The hike back to camp is pretty uneventful, but Aster and Jan refuse to tell us what they saw in there. Aster was still trying to act cool, but he kept glancing behind us. Jan didn't say a word the entire time. We got back to camp and it was about 5:30 p.m. It really didn't feel like we were gone for that long. The whole thing was weird. We all agreed we'd meet up later that night after we ate and showered. Later that night at around 10:30, the same group of us all meet up near the registration building because it had a light similar to a street light. We decided to head down into the field that was at the entrance of the campground, beside a dirt road leading from the road back to camp. It was a new moon that night, and we could see the stars more clearly than before. It was the brightest I have ever personally seen them. We all exchanged spooky stories in the dark field for quite some time. For some inexplicable reason, all 5 of us stood up at the same time and began to walk back to the dirt road heading to camp. As we reached the light by the registration office, we all simultaneously turned around and the light above us flickered out. We all see a tall bipedal figure moving through the field we were just in. It moved across the field quickly and silently. Chills went up and down my spine, and it felt like the cold was trying to reach into my brain itself. The figure was darker than the darkness itself and appeared to be taller than all of us, hunched, and almost appeared to have spikes protruding from it in some way. We were all frozen. None of us moved at all until the light above us suddenly came back on. The figure was gone, but it was unnaturally cold still for a summer night. We all ran to our respective camps. Fast forward the winter of 2009, I'm telling my ex-girlfriend of mine, let's call her Kitty, about the above story. She's the type of girl that says that she is very sensitive to paranormal events and is always intrigued about them as opposed to being afraid of them. She somehow convinces me that she needs to go to the camp I used to go to, but it's been closed and is now an agricultural farm. I decide to drive her up to there one night in my 2000 Buick Century Limited. Mind you, this car was a beast and could make it through the snow with ease due to the really nice traction control system and winter tires. We arrive at 10:30 p.m. and the dirt road isn't plowed out. No surprise. I wasn't worried and decided to drive it anyway. My car's a champ, and it's going through just fine. I'm passing the registration building and get the same feeling of dread I felt long ago. That day at the house, the engine cuts. The power is gone out of the car. The car refuses to start. I look over at my ex, and she's staring straight ahead. They're looking at us. What the actual hell? I try to start the car again, and it starts normally, but my traction control is no longer working, and the time has been reset to 12. The car is spinning and the tires somehow. We're stuck. My headlights were on, and I happened to look at the trees and see multiple figures my camp friends and I saw running between the trees in the distance. My blood went cold, and I yelled, "What the hell? Let's get out of here." I turned the car off and started again. Traction light comes on, and I'm able to move the car. I slam it in reverse and reverse down the dirt road back to the main road that will head back to civilization. I slammed it in drive, and the supercharger in my baby, one of the sweetest and most revealing sounds I have heard that night. Drive back has the forest on the same side of the road as the camp for pretty much 10 of the 20-mile trip. My ex is staring out of the window. Out of nowhere, she mutters something quietly. I tell her I can't hear her and ask her if she's okay. She doesn't look at me, but I'm able to make out what she's saying this time. They're following us. They want us. They are the most evil thing I have ever felt, and they want us to go into the house with them. I tell her it's going to be okay and that we'll be safe soon. I tell her to stop looking out of the window and just focus on clearing her mind. We make it back into town, and I went into the closest gas station that was open, grabbed a water and a snack for us. I asked the clerk what time it is because both of our phones are dead, and I wanted to reset the clock in my car. They say it's currently 3:49 a.m. You sure are out early. I just nodded and paid for my things. I brought my ex to my place so she wouldn't get in trouble for getting in so late since she lived with her mom. We never spoke of it again, and broke up about a month later. I've told others about this story, and I have had many tell me to bring them there. I refuse to bring them or even tell them where this place may be. Nothing can explain the weird things in that place, and I shudder to this day thinking about it. Today's fourth encounter. It started when I was staying with a friend one night, and we were hanging out like usual. Her father had come in because he thought he saw some coyotes and were excited because they don't normally get this close to the house. We went outside quietly to check it out. He flashed his light towards it, and all we could see were greenish eyes glowing, looking towards us near the tree line. That's all we could see. Since we thought it was a coyote, her father had shot at it. We didn't know if he had hit it or not, but the eyes were still there. But after he had shot at it, it started moving its head in an unnatural way, kind of nodding side to side. We went to check it out to see if it was injured and laid out there, when we were looking around the area and saw nothing. We even drove around the woods to see if it was trying to run away. That was not the last time we saw this creature. About a month or so later, my friend had gotten sent away for a while. I've always been close with the family, so I decided to come up to her father's to stay for a couple days and check up on him. It was kind of early in the morning and a sunny day. Her father had told me he was going to work, and I'd have the house to myself until he got back in the afternoon. So he left. I'm hanging out in the living room, playing on my phone. I left the door open since it was nice out. All of a sudden, I felt the need to look out the window because I thought someone was outside. I opened the curtains and looked around and saw something out of the corner of my eye in the area we saw the coyote a while back. I looked in the direction and saw this terrifying human-like creature around the same spot on the border of the trees. It was sort of kneeling down like a person looking directly at me. It was all black and very skinny. It had longish legs and arms and was a bit tall and had this wooden leaves looking cape thing on it. It also didn't seem to have any facial features from what I could see, just a facial structure and indents where its eyes should be. I was in shock, staring at it like I couldn't take my eyes off this creature, trying to make sure I was actually seeing it, and my mind was not playing tricks on me. So I kept looking at it, and all of a sudden it raised its hand up, seemingly like it was waving at me, tilted its head to the side, and started nodding its head, just like what we thought the coyote did. After that, snapped me back and stood up and run and closed the door. When I got to the door, someone was driving up to the house, and the creature was no longer there. Here's something else that happened before both these experiences that may or may not be related to this creature. One night, while my friend and I were home alone, we were just chilling on our phones, and my friend kept falling asleep, and I was getting creeped out. So I kept waking her up, and then she started talking nonsense that her father was here and talking to her. I could snap her out of it, and she would ask where he was, which she knew he left but was convinced he had come back. I sort of laughed about it and explained to her that he hadn't come back home yet. She seemed really tired, but kept talking about him being there, which I was disagreeing. Then, all of a sudden, we heard her father's voice from the hallway in the other room say her name, just like he would if he was trying to get her attention for her to come in there. We both heard it loud and clear, but no one was at the house. Not anyone was outside. After that, we didn't hear anything else for a while. After a little bit, we still had our guards up because of what happened, and we started hearing noises from outside which sounded like multiple people talking and laughing. Kind of sounded like her father had some friends over. We were really scared by then and called her father to see when he would be home and to hurry up. He said he was on his way home. The voices calmed down, and her father eventually made it home. Today's fifth encounter. My family owns a small, secluded cabin in southwest Virginia. This past summer, we decided to spend about 3 weeks there. The cabin has electricity and running water, but there's no TVs or computers. The third day of our visit, the nearest neighbor, a cattle farmer who lives about 2 miles down the road, came up to the cabin and informed us that during the past 2 weeks, some of his cattle had been slaughtered and basically mutilated. There are fox and wolves in those hills and occasionally a small black bear, but nothing that could do this much damage and over such a spread out time. He asked us if we had seen anything and told us to keep our eyes open if we saw a rabid fox, wolf, or bear, or any other animal that could possibly have done it. We told him we would, and he thanked us and left. The next 5 or 6 days passed uneventfully, but around a week after the farmer came to our house, we experienced something. That day, we barbecued some hot dogs and hamburgers and had a small party with some close friends, but none of them stayed the night. Around 11:30 p.m., my wife and I decided to go to bed. We slept peacefully until about 3:45 a.m. when there was a loud crash outside and our dog started barking furiously. I didn't have a rifle or any other type of weapon, so I decided to cautiously proceed downstairs and turn the floodlights on around the cabin. The switch to the lights was outside on the deck of the cabin, so I proceeded out there and turned them on. What I saw next still baffles me. At my truck, there was a creature standing upright, about 7 feet tall, with huge claws on its hands. It had white hair that was almost gray, but I couldn't really see its eyes. It seemed to be searching around the bed in my truck and was paying no attention to the now frantic dog. When the lights first came on, it did nothing but continue to search. But it then looked up on the deck. By now, I'm frozen in horror. It turned around and made eye contact with me. It then made a horrible screeching sound, almost as if it was in terror from the sight of me. At first, it seemed as if it was going to charge at me and climb the steps onto the deck. But then, in a terrorizing rage, it made another screech and sprinted away. It ran upright, and its claws almost went past its knees. The next day, we left the cabin and reported what we saw to the local deputy. He dismissed it as nothing more than a bear and said we shouldn't concern ourselves with backwoods business. Wow. Huh. Backwoods business. Don't concern yourself with backwoods business. I wonder if this sheriff is related to Armando Fuentes of Tennessee. That statement right there just kind of proves everything I've been saying. The government knows, local, state, federal, they know what's going on, and they want to just keep it hush-hush. Because, you know what, and I've been thinking about this, and it's all about money. They don't care about us. They care about their wallets getting fatter. It's all about the money, the tourism, the forestry, everything that brings money in wealth into the powers that be wallet. I believe that they've known about these creatures since the the founding of this great country we live in. I mean, you'd have to be dumb not to, especially, founding this great country. And there's no real humanity at the time. You've got Native Americans, which I know when eventually we're taught English, probably told some stories or showed some pictures, carved on rocks and stuff, but don't concern yourself in backwoods business. Why? Because it's bad for you and it's bad for us. And what's bad for us will just make you disappear, make you look crazy. That's just garbage. Anyway, I guess we really can't trust local, state, federal government. The only time we'll really be able to trust them is when they tell us that these things exist. And even then, they won't tell us everything. Who knows? I don't know. Just baffling to me. Gives me a headache when I think about it sometimes. It really does. I had a headache today, just a pounding headache, thinking about Tom Mezek case. He disappeared November 15th, 2015. My daughter's birthday is on that date. And it's just, I remember hearing the story that day when it happened. Because I listened to NPR, which is just national news, public radio. And that's all I listen to. I really don't listen to music when I'm driving. And I remember hearing that story come up, and I was like, whoa, that's crazy. And I kind of remember people talking about things back then too. But, I'll never forget that case. And I really just, being up there made me want to find out more, to be honest with you. More questions. The more answers I got, the more questions I had. And I really think that's what hurt my head. My head hurt all day yesterday because of it. But I don't know. That's neither here nor there. I hope you guys enjoyed today's upload as much as I enjoyed sharing it with you. With that, I want to thank everybody for all your support. It really means the world to me. This isn't my channel. Even though the name's Dogman Encounters with Jeff Nadolny, it's your guys' channel. You guys are what makes this channel so great. I mean, honestly, without you guys, I would just be talking into a mic into dead air. So thank you. I really appreciate you guys just listening to it. Most of the time it's just me bumbling words and being an idiot. But thanks. You guys you have no idea how much you guys mean to me. I really honestly think you guys keep me sane, and you guys kind of keep me alive because you guys give me a purpose. I mean, before this channel, I had no purpose. Yeah, I was a dad, but I was diagnosed with an illness. I had severe neuropathy, couldn't walk some days. And now I have a purpose. You guys and my children, don't get me wrong, but this channel just gives me something to look forward to every day. So thank you. Enough of the mushy bullcrap. With that, I'm going to bid you farewell. I encourage you all to be kind to each other, and may the Great Spirit watch over all of us and guide us through our path of life.